On this screen, what you see is best practices for using the Financial Report Designer. First thing that we want to do is the General Ledger migrate to the setup and move to account segment values. The segment code, I just called up segment 1000. We notice that the segment area for the top red arrow is chart, and we don't want to do this. We can do it, but we don't necessarily want to do it on division and department. It's best to do it on the chart. And then if you'll notice the red arrow at the bottom, we want to pick that category. That category is what the system will use in order to start populating your balance sheet. So now we're going to migrate back to the same place we were just looking, General Ledger, Setup, Financial Report Designer this time. And this is a warning for anybody who's got multi-company that they're using. Make sure that you're in the correct company for the financial report that you're writing. We want to fill out the header as we did in the past. And when you're first writing this, you want to make sure that you're going to the detailed balance account. You can always shorten it down in future copies to the natural account or summary the balance account. The fonts, the heading font and the report font, you have options there to change your font and your font size. In addition, you can make it bold, italic, and underline. Remember, we're on the report header here. We're not on the actual line items that we'll see in a few minutes. So if we're going to use the report wizard and we set everything up correct in our account segment values, we can just migrate to the report wizard and click that box. That's using the 3 horizontal dots at the top of the page. And this time we're going to select the report type, which says the balance sheet. Notice that it says it's going to create the standard column and rows for a balance sheet, but we may have to go back and fill out account ranges for each row, report row if we need it. Once we fill those in, we hit OK. We migrate over to the report, and I called this Whiz Balance Sheet Test or Whiz Bal Test. Notice what it did this time is for column sets, we're just going to have a standard column set. That's because generally we don't compare year over year. You could, in fact, compare year over year if you wanted to. You could add a second column set called comparison if you wanted, or last year, same as we did in the income statement, and then we could have the same columns or add columns. Our normal balance sheet, though, is just going to be an account, a description, and a current year to date. So by using the wizard, we got what you see on the screen. It also added all of the lines down below. So it added, based on what the system knows about doing balance sheets, it added everything that was in our account numbers. So what we get here is now we can go over and we can test this report and we can see how it's operating. We go to reports under General Ledger, financial reports, and this time we are going to pull up the balance sheet. Notice that it says the income wizard. I apologize for that. It should have showed us the balance sheet on the screen, but we are calling up the balance sheet this time. I'm doing it for a fiscal period 2024 period 9, and I encourage you always to pull up your trial balance. We want to make sure that our trial balance and our statements look the same. So you can see here on the right-hand side, this is the result of running the financial report wizard just based on pulling the detail out of the system. As you can see, we have an out of balance condition. So that means that we need to go back and we need to review how we built the income state or the balance sheet. So we're going to go back to the financial report designer. We're going to call back up that test balance sheet and see what's going on. Talked about the columns. So let's take a look here. Again, this pulled right in from the system, and you can see there's something weird going on with our equity account here. We can see that the line 1800 is showing some kind of account details that's going to net -INCBS. Then we have a 1900 called net income balance sheet use. Then we have 2000, which is showing total net income, which is actually just summing up line 1800. And then we have a summary total in equity. We've got a total of profit, which is going to total to the equity line. And we've got the line 2300, which is telling us our total liability, our total equity, which is going to total to our total liability and equity lines. We all know that doesn't look right, so we're going to start correcting that and just placing our efforts on those particular columns. We got rid of some of the information on here. We did a summary of the equity accounts. We did a net income to BCBS, and we just go in and we fix it. And now we see that once we fixed all of those lines from the report wizard, we notice, and this is on 2 pages, we notice that we have now fixed our retained earnings. We've fixed our liabilities and equities. They're printing out much better. And we still would really want to fix, if you notice, we've got the 105 and the 105 and the 688. We would still want to fix those for presentation purposes and for addition to total equity. And now we see that we have a zero balance condition, which is exactly what we're looking for. So I'm going to flip over to our financial report designer here, and we're just going to take a look at this in real time. So I'm going to go to set up the general ledger and financial report designer, and I'm going to go to the new version, and I'm going to go to the Wiz balance sheet test. We can see here that we've got column sets in there as standard. We've got columns, but in this case, no rows came in or the rows came in just as we expected. So let's take a look at, I'm going to move the rows to full screen, and let's just take a look at what's going on here. So they're going to print the total of current assets, and it's going to sum to assets. But we also have a heading line and current assets. We probably don't want to include line 200 and 300. We probably want to just include lines 400 and 500. So how do we get rid of those? We go over and we're going to get rid of the heading line and just delete that line. And we're going to go back to our rows. And now that line is missing. We're going to delete our row 300 as well because it's not really summing to anything. And we're going to go back to our main screen for rows. So now what we have is we have current assets as a heading. We have account details for current assets, totaling to current assets, and then we have our total line showing up. So if we clicked onto this 500 account, let's take a look what's in there. So in this case, we've selected a category, we've selected current assets. It's coming from the chart of accounts that we looked at when we first started this training. And so we're picking up current assets. If we don't like that, or we want to add something to that, we can select accounts, and we can add a specific account here. So we go to specific account, we use the circle plus, and we put in account 1000 again. And I'm just playing, so it's gonna double book it because that account is mapped to there. We're going to save it, and now when we ran the report, we'll see cash on there, and that's all we'll see on the assets because we eliminated everything else from current assets by moving to specific accounts. We can also say, I'm going to delete this, although I could leave it, and I'm going to go back to segments, and I could say, pull out these segments, and I can pick any one of these. So I'm going to pick the chart, and I'm going to say I want to go from 1000 to 1100. And I can save that, and I will get the same result if everything is built the right way as I did if I selected the category. Now you can also run an income balance sheet and an income statement by adding a division or department. You're not limited. So if you want to see it from department 00 to 00, you can do that as well, and it will pull out all the charts that are from 1000 to 1100 and the departments of 00 to 00. Can make these go whatever way that you would like. We can change the layout on any row that we want. So by checking out the layout, we've got the text fonts, the data fonts. We can do paging. As we discussed yesterday, we can reverse the sign. So if you want to present your liabilities as in the black as your font, we would reverse the sign, and then the system will behave accordingly when it publishes the information. You want to make sure that for something like accumulated depreciation, you would want to not reverse the sign. It'll come in as a credit balance, and that's the way that we would normally present it on the balance sheet. Thank you, everyone.